Welcome back, everyone. In honor of the new year, I've decided to make this slightly different video about looking at some of my larger positions in different commodities in different places around the world. So the way I structured it is I'll talk a little bit about some of the larger positions in, well, each commodity and in each country. Now, that being said, this is not necessarily my largest positions in my portfolio. They're just uh, in each place and with some added rules. Okay, as I mentioned, rules. So what are the rules for being included in this video? Okay, one, I must own it. So obviously I own everything in this video, full disclosure, different positions. Some are really small, some are not so small. But anyway, I own them. Two, they're the biggest position in the country, and this is like kind of because if it's the biggest, if rule number three applies and it's the biggest position in the commodity, I may have included it even if it's not the biggest in the country. Fourth rule, I would still buy at today's prices the stock because there's no point if I'm looking to trim something, there's no point in saying, well, I like this because, you know. Fifth rule, well, this isn't a rule, this is just kind of a guideline so you could see my thought process. The size of the star is the size of the position that I think about. So if it's a big star, I think of it as a bigger position. Now this may be because of options or whatever, and I'm talking about the shares, but basically I think of the stars are how big I think of it as a relative to its risk reward profile type position. Now, yeah, note I have some positions large that would be large enough to be included in this video, but um, that are some bigger than some things, but I'm closer to selling than buying, so I'm not really talking about them. Okay, and to confuse everyone, just because I really need that to happen, I'm going to start with the outlier here. This is not my largest position in Canada. This is technically my largest position in copper. Now, TASEKO um, is a large position, or it's a small position, but it's my largest position in copper. Now, recently I've kind of flipped, not recently, in the middle of December, kind of flipped to bullish on copper, maybe early December, whatever. And I was looking for producers, third quartile with kind of near-term price torque. Now, I kind of think of these more options than investments, and I'll make a video in the coming weeks talking about why I picked these for copper, this strategy. Um, and yes, shout out to the viewer that messaged me and asked, or we had a chat about copper stocks, and he said, have you looked at this one, or you prefer that one to this one? And I'm like, no, you're right. I was just watching the other thing. But anyway, view the third quartile type producers in copper. There's billion-dollar assets for 100 whatever $1 million. I not a super economic bull, but point is, heading into 2020, I think there's a good chance for near-term reflation, and that could take copper a bit higher. And largest position for now is this one. Next, we have silver. Now, this is an interesting type scenario because it kind of fit perfectly. For me, I'm more of a gold bull than a silver bull. However, I recognize that silver has more leverage potential, and when people get excited about silver, they really get excited about silver. Now, why do I own MINCO? And full disclosure, I have for a while, and I'm not like super buying more, but it's just one of those things that I've had because it's just really cheap and it has potential. So my thought process here is you have this company that at one point it was trading at basically the cash value or sub cash value even. So you have this silver asset. Yes, it's in China, and yes, they're waiting for permits, but you have this silver asset that has a lot of silver, decent economics, and trading at below cash value. So my thoughts was like if people ever get excited about silver and there's actually a reason to own silver, well then this could do decent. But If not, it's trading at below its cash value, so the bottom is semi-protected. So as I said, not a huge position, but it is actually my largest pure play silver position. So that's that. In the agricultural commodity space, I don't really have that big a position. I used to own some Nutrien because I believe that they're really in control of the market, but I wasn't really liking how the market was working. So a while ago, I kind of exited that position. Didn't make much, but had better places for the cash. But when it comes to Verde Agritech, sorry, my terrible accent, um, it's not a huge position, but I really think it's incredible potential. Now, why is this? So they are not guaranteed to be successful. They could fail and they could, they could be worthless. But if you look at what they would be worth if they were successful, it is significantly higher. So a friend made some joke about some really high number of bagger, and we were talking about some uranium stock. But I replied, I'm like, if I do own a whatever that number of bagger was, it probably is most probably Verde because you look at what their cash flow could be if they're successful in out a few years, and it's a heck of a lot higher than the market cap is now. And I really recommend, well, would really say do your own research and look at what the potential is in this thing. Again, small position, but if successful, could be large position. So I don't really need to risk super amount in this one because it is unproven. But if it does prove out, well, you know, portfolio basis would be, slightly bigger. So I'm not a super lithium bull. Now I know the fundamental story, I know the growth, but do you know the supply growth? It happened really quickly. Um, I don't think it has too much lower to go. At this point, I think the bottom was probably in. I don't know that it will bounce off the bottom, but I think that realistically the price has fallen significantly enough that I think it could chop around in base here. That being said, again, still not super bullish on lithium, and if I were going to maybe be playing lithium, I might play it slightly differently. However, the value in this case is, well, pretty pretty astounding. Now there are a lot of questions here and all, but PLATEAU is my largest lithium uh, stock, and it is my largest stock in Peru, and for that both of those reasons, it is being included in this video. Now, do I think the uranium aspect has a lot of value also? Absolutely could. But do I think that the lithium project could be worth, well alone be worth the price here? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't know that that's going to matter in the next year or two, but eventually lithium, the price will recover to a spot where it incentivizes more production. And at that point, more projects will be needed. And I do think this is a real project, again, with questions, but it is a decent position of mine. So a number of people probably would have been thinking that my largest position in Canada might be Denison. And I do like Denison. I have not sold a share. Um, I have, however, added to my position in Sky Harbor, and it has recently passed my position in Denison. Now, Denison is no longer, well, neither of these are amongst my top few uranium positions, but I do have a decent sized position in it. And given that it is high risk, this is probably deserves a bigger star than what I gave it because it is, again, it's an explorer. They still have to spend a lot of money and prove out their deposit, but the potential here is really high, but as is the risk. So that's why it's not a super big position, because I do like a lot of things that this company has going and am still looking to add to different explorers. As I mentioned in a video in the past, that's where I'm spending the bulk of my time these days researching uranium companies. Now, Sky Harbor does have thorium exposure, so let's pretend it's that, but it's not. It's uranium. So it's a bad joke, the thorium side. Anyway, yeah. In the U.S., we have come to a point, and I don't know how we got here when it's a company of this size. We've come to the point where I have a surprisingly large position in Encore. Now, how did this happen? I don't know. Um, Realistically, every time that the company spikes up to like 17 cents, I'm like, I know this is not it. I should probably trim. And by the time I look to potentially do that, it's back down. And then it goes back to 12, 11 cents, and I just buy more because I'm like, oh, next time I'll trim because it just bounces around. But the point is, I don't trim. I'm hesitant because the potential of this company is huge, and the management is great, and they own a ton of shares, and they have proven themselves in the past. Now, the as of right now, it's what, 17 cents today, something. And there are a number of options that are coming due in a month, I believe. So is this the best entry point? Probably not. Again, my cost basis is a bit lower. It's not as low as some other YouTube channels that I know of. I speak of one specifically. Um, you probably know who it is. Um, but anyway, so my cost basis is higher than theirs, but lower than the market price. And that's very important when you're looking at risk reward, because I think of this as bonus area where we are now. But I really like Encore. I really like what they can do. And hopefully I look back at trimming at 17 or 20 cents and I laugh at how dumb that would have been. So yeah, that's my largest US position, and it is not for its rare earth elements. When we go to diamonds, there aren't a ton of diamond producers out there. And as many of you are aware, I am bullish in the diamond space. Lucara, which is one that I've spoken about in the past, is my largest diamond position, and it is my largest position of any stock in Botswana. And yes, that is approximately where Botswana is, even though that star is bigger than the country in relative terms. Obviously, Botswana is a great country right next to Namibia. I'm guessing many of you know where that one is for different reasons. But my point is that Lucara, it's a large position. It has gotten hit. I am down on the position, obviously. Look at diamond producers, and there will be a video coming out in the coming weeks. I have it formatted, just need to narrate it about what's going on in diamonds and how things should really fundamentally be turning around, but I don't know. There's always the recession risk or whatever. But yeah, largest position in diamonds is Lucara, and I think they have a whole lot going for them and could have even more if pricing recovers. Now on to Namibia, where my largest position is Bannerman. Now, this is a decent sized position, and it's made even, well, the star in this case is made even bigger by the fact that it is not a low cost producer. Meaning, if the price doesn't go as high as it may, then there is a lot of potential for time between now and the time that this project might go into production. Now, I do believe that this project deserves a premium because of its strategic value, and I do think that it is getting a discount because the market is just so depressed. And when things turn, I think this could turn notably more than some other peers, but this is my speculation and that's my view on things. Now, I have been adding to this over time. This position, it wasn't one of the first ones that I made in the space, but as I figure out more, it's one I kind of understand better, started understanding and started liking and then put on a position. So there is, well, this is Namibia. As I said, not my largest uranium position, but is a decent sized position. Okay, so in fairness on this one, on Equinox, the star isn't that big. It's not that big of a position. I just kind of put it there because it has operations all over America. And so, yes, the merger did seem to excite the shareholders and the market on this story. But I remember on the thing where I was talking about Equinox a while ago, and it was cheap. And Leogold was cheaper, and the merger somehow proves that, market makes so much sense because 1 + 1 = 4. Okay. So that's what we have here. Equinox's largest gold position that I'm still most likely to add to. So I do have some other gold positions that are sizable now because we've had a fortunate year with gold and could have another one. I think we might. But Equinox is the one that I'm closest to still buying. Now, to those geography experts out there, many of you might point out that that is in fact not land where that star is. And you'd have a point because the largest shipping position that I have, partially due to the way it was put on, and partially due to the fact that it was successful so far, at least, is Scorpio tankers. And this is a market where I've talked about recently. Soon it could make a decision about, are these rates for real? Are they going to be persistent, or is it a temporary spike? So when it makes that decision, it could move sharply in a direction. Which direction? Well, I hope it's up because of the size of the star, basically. So yeah, I'm still optimistic on shipping. I think that there could be a lot more in the move, and so yeah. So my largest position in Niger is Global Atomic. It's not my only position in Niger, but it is my largest zinc position. And I know a whole bunch of you might be like, okay, you're being sarcastic there, or yeah, it's not a zinc position. But okay, so yeah, they have a whole bunch of uranium, and that's like a very good reason to own them in my thesis. But the point is, if you forget about the uranium asset for a second and look at what would the zinc asset be worth, I come up with a number that is larger than the current market cap. Now, maybe that's just me being optimistic or whatever, but realistically, this isn't a super speculation, high risk uranium play. This is a cheap zinc stock that also happens to have something that the market doesn't really seem to be caring about. So part of what makes me able to size this position the way it is, and ironically, the reason why I view this as the king of uranium stocks, which I did a video in the past, is because of the zinc, because they make money, because they can do things that almost no other uranium stock can do. They can move their asset forward without diluting shares. They can get stronger as time goes on, and that is due to the zinc, not the uranium. And that is not at all to discount their uranium asset, which is one of the best in the world. Maybe not top two because you have Canada, but there's a whole bunch of underappreciated aspects of this company, in my view. We'll see if I'm right in the end, but it is probably my largest position. Yeah. And that brings us to a conclusion of this video. So that's all for today. Just a reminder that this is never any recommendations. This is just me sharing my thoughts about some of the stocks that I own and the reasons why or how they fit into my portfolio. And it is very important to do your own research and not to just listen to anyone, myself included. And another thing that's very important is to know your own risk tolerance, because if you are concerned about a position that you have because you don't know something or you're just listening to someone else, it's not going to end in the best way. So know yourself, know your positions, do your research, and good luck.